E-commerce store owners. I've generated over $55 million in client revenue. And the biggest thing I've noticed between accounts that scale and accounts that flatline during Q4 is those that know who their best performing products are, what is wasting their money and becoming unprofitable, and what products are getting no impressions at all. In this video, I'll show you the exact breakdown of how you can find out what these products are, how to scale them, and how to kill off the winners. All right, hopping in the video here. So I'm going to talk about the strategy, product segmentation thresholds, product segments, a live spreadsheet view of an actual account, how to do the Google Merchant Center feed label. So this is actually practical and applicable to your asset groups and campaigns. And then an example performance max campaign structure that you can use to implement once we're in here. So essentially, we want to know how and why to segment products based on the last year of data I like to do because there'll be seasonality to certain products. You want to see the entire year. And overall, you want to see at the product SKU level, essentially, because this is going to determine your campaign structure. Because without looking at this at the SKU level, you might have a small percentage of products that are driving majority of the revenue. And then there's going to be a lot of products that are unprofitable that are dragging down ROAS and wasting spend on Google. So we want to look at these. And then certain products aren't even being tested. So we need to know all these things. And yeah, this will allow you to segment the account properly so you're not getting dragged down in performance. And I'll also talk about how to scale up profitable products, adjust the costly ones, and test the Met and Fluke products. Okay, so these here are kind of like the thresholds that I'm talking about. So you can look at this like a quadrant where above this line is the cost threshold of the past year or whatever date range you want to look at. If you want to look at the last year of products that have spent at least $10, that would be your cost threshold. What essentially is above this cost threshold? And then you also have a return on ad spend threshold. So if your goal is to get a 3x ROAS, and any products that have spent at least $10 that are hitting this 3x ROAS would be considered profitable by those standards. And these are the products that we really want to scale up and see how hard we can push through PMAX shopping, these sort of things. Then we have a lot of products that are spending a lot but are below that threshold of the 3x profitability in this example, and want to see why these are not performing well. And then below the line, we have ones that are profitable, and then we have ones that are unprofitable. And then to the left of the axis, you see ones that have no conversions at all that are spending, and these are arguably worse than the costly ones. And then you have products that are being untested completely, so no impressions, anything like this. So you kind of want to look at it like that. And I have all these like definitions here so you can get a good idea. Next, this is like an example account structure looking at the last year of data. So this is pretty common. So a small percentage of the titles are driving majority of the revenue. And these are all profitable products. So in this example, there's about 388 profitable products for this client of the 14,000. So these are driving a lot of the revenue profitably. And then we have another 7% of products that are costly. And then we have about 4% here that haven't spent enough in this account at all to essentially see really if they're profitable or not. Technically, these are profitable right now, but they're kind of flukes. They're not really spending too much. Then we have a lot of the percentage of products that are either getting no impressions at all or have gotten 0 conversions. You can see on the pie chart here, when looking at accounts, it's very common for this to be the case where you'd want to start allocating even more spend towards these products, but you want to do separate segmentation to actually test the products that aren't getting any impressions, unless there's a business reason why we don't want to push those products, for like margin reasons, whatever that may be. That's something that you'd want to look into. And then definitely the 0 conversion ones and costly ones, we have to reevaluate them. So you can kind of see when breaking out the products in the spreadsheet, which I'll go over later in the video, you can see the breakdown sort of by impressions overall. So you can kind of see what is doing better. So you can see the actual titles, the click-through rate on the titles, because if the click-through rate's low, this is another opportunity to optimize the title. If it's below 1% click-through rate, you probably want to update the structure of the title, the search terms, these sort of things to kind of increase the click-through rate. Maybe look at competitors. You can see the actual ROAS on some of these, which are very high. So you want to continue to push a lot of this. Overall conversion volume within your date range. So these are definitely opportunities to scale these products and give them special attention, making new creative to find them in other networks as well, like display, demand gen, just not only in shopping campaigns. And then like zero conversion ones are costly. This is another thing you really have to look at. So how much are they really spending overall in having it dragged down my account? So these often, if you just shut these off, this will save a lot of spend in an account until you can review your pricing, titles, targeting, listing quality, and like optimizing them and then reallocating budget to the higher performing campaigns. It's usually not an issue for these products, and a lot of times accounts don't even know that these are getting all the spend and not converting, especially when you have like tens of thousands of SKUs. You don't really know what is doing well or not. So it's very important. You can turn these off or re-optimize them similar to the costly products. If you're liking the video so far, I'd like to tell you about my Google Ads Done For You service, where me and my team personally look at your Google Ads account to see the opportunities to scale, what to cut back on, and improve your results. If you'd like to reach out for a free one-on-one consultation, book that below. And then you can see these products that actually have a lot of potential and demand, because if you see like all the impressions that some of these products are getting, then they definitely have a market that's out there, but the click-through rate could be very low. So maybe the pricing is not attractive. Maybe you need to restructure the titles, maybe update the images, these sort of things to kind of push the conversion rate and ROAS to where you're actually profitable. This is another like business question. If the ROAS is actually profitable for certain products, you have to take that into account too. You don't want to just do account level ROAS targets. Sometimes the business can't operate profitably for some of these products. So you don't necessarily need to pause them, but it's very important to kind of see so you have visibility and you can label these appropriately. And then you can see the MAD products. So these are essentially unprofitable, but have spent very little. So they haven't really gotten a chance for you to really see or not. But at the moment, they're unprofitable. So these definitely, if you have the budget, test them in a separate campaign so you can review creative, review the audiences, and see if these are an opportunity to kind of scale up. And then Flukes, these are actually doing really well, but they have spent very little too. So these are opportunities to test and scale these as well. Okay, now going into the how to actually apply these in an account. I'm just going to go to the actual live spreadsheet of one of these here. So if we go to essentially title, we can see the breakdown in the date range and the year. And this is Mike Rhodes' script. So this is a really good script that really breaks out and gives you more visibility for your PMAX and shopping campaigns to see account structures overall. And like I showed in the screenshot, this is kind of where we're at here. And you can filter and label these by profitable, costly, and zombie products as well. Overall. So these are very important to kind of see all this stuff here so that you can then segment, etc. So now that you have all this data, it's kind of like, what do you do with this information? Like, how do I apply this? Because often you'll see in accounts like media buyers or even yourself, you don't want to do all this segmentation because you're gonna have to manually break out specific item IDs, always refresh this, manually do it again. So the easier way to do it is if you go to the ID tab in the spreadsheet, you can see the buckets and the IDs that you'd essentially have for all these products. So this, you'll be able to see and apply this to essentially a merchant center custom label that will do this for you. So a custom label, essentially, when you're adding like a supplemental feed, this will allow you to add supplemental data that you wouldn't traditionally have from your Shopify or product labels and stuff like this. So this will allow you to do that exactly. Okay, so I just populated this here. So the only thing you're really going to need overall is essentially ID and custom label. You can start, if your account doesn't have any custom labels yet, I would just say start with custom label 0 because you can do up to 5 custom labels, 0 through 4 in the account. And this can be everything from stuff like this that's showing the actual profitability of a product like this, or it can be seasonality, it can be margins, it can be um, holidays, like anything that your heart desires that you're actually going to utilize in the account. So now that we have a custom label that's linked with our merchant center, we're going to want to go back to the spreadsheet and see this tab here that we essentially have. I'm just going to copy this data. I'm just going to copy this so it doesn't get overlapped. And we're going to paste it. We're going to want to remove this bucket label here. We want to put custom label 0 because Google doesn't know what bucket is. Only we would, and we'd have to essentially upload that into the account like that. So you have all these custom labels like this overall. And then we go back to the supplemental. We can click continue. And then you just take the feed that you have and you just essentially you're creating that data source via the link of the spreadsheet and what you just uploaded. Essentially, once you have this here and the supplemental feed is populating, you can see within data sources, and you'll see supplemental sources. And if you click on the supplemental source, you're going to want to make sure that you update it and it populates and it doesn't have any errors. It takes a little bit of time and it depends on like the account. If there's like some old item IDs, this sort of stuff, that you might run into issues. But otherwise, if your product data is clean, you'll see matched products like 100% or updated products. So you actually see the labels in there. If you come into your account and you actually don't see some of these things, you're going to want to go here. I already added it here, but you're essentially going to want to add advanced data source management. If you don't see that supplemental source in your account here, you're going to want to do that. I already added it in this account, and you'll need to be an admin on the Merchant Center in order to do this. So that's very important to know as well. If you're not seeing it in your account or your client's account, they might need to make you an admin. And then once you have these labels, it's going to be very easy for you to, for example, go into a merchant center. Let's see an old one here. So say we look at this at the summary level. We go to listing groups. It takes usually like 4 to 48 hours, honestly, for this to populate. But then you could go in here and segment by custom labels. And then you can use whatever custom labels you want for this. So you'd say, this is the custom label you wanted to do. You would then have that excluded, have only the custom label of like profitable products, for example, in there. And then you could just say, you could just update it to profitable, put the date, and then just leave it like that. And then once that's segmented, and you're doing just like a feed only, for example, you don't need to do any other segmentation. But another way to kind of think about it, and as we kind of like talk about the structure and everything like this on like the campaign level, one level of segmentation is profitable products. The other level within the PMAX asset groups is product type. Just because these products are all profitable doesn't necessarily mean you want to bucket them all into one asset group, because they could be completely different product categories. They could have different stock levels, this sort of stuff. So you can take it one level even deeper and do essentially another segmentation. Once you have the profitable, you could add by product type and do an additional segmentation, or by brand, all this sort of stuff, so that you can essentially give the right creative to scale these profitable products. And they can all be in one campaign, like a profitable campaign. But at the asset group level, you're going to want to have creative messaging personas that will all speak to these profitable products, or individual asset groups within the profitable products campaign. So it's not just like a mash of, just because they're profitable doesn't mean they're all going to the same audience, and they're not going to all have the same creative or messaging. So that's something to really keep in mind. And you essentially follow this process for a lot of the products. You don't want to have too much, you don't have any overlapping between like the profitable products, fluke products, zombie, etc. And I would recommend you do something like this every 30 days. It really depends how much you're spending. But this is a good like manual process to actually see, because there's automated scripts that will push these products and stuff. I don't recommend that as much, because it is really good to see the data and see what's moving and shaking the account overall when you're looking at titles. Because if you're shifting them too much, it can really affect how a campaign's doing. especially when they have high spend, like some of these costly ones. You kind of want to review and take that into account so you can essentially do that and have more active management. So I wouldn't recommend too much automated scripts, or reporting scripts like this are very helpful overall in the account. Yeah, so like I said, review them like that. That's essentially how you would do like product segmentation in an account, and then take it a one step deeper and look at the asset groups in creative and messaging segmentation, which I'll make another video about, which is a completely other type of creative process when testing asset groups. But this is the first part of making a good account structure, because without good account structure, you can't out media buy that, because you're going to be spending money in the wrong places. Some potential winners will be getting no spend, and it will just be a mess. And I see this very often. So this is a very helpful script to do, implement, and practically update your account today. If you'd like me to personally help you segment your e-commerce feeds and help you scale this Q4, reach out for a free one-on-one consultation below.